In Kansas City in the mid-2000s, there was a little Cajun restaurant named LaCroix's Creole Bistro. It was a tiny place in the Westport district run by Kevin and Gloria Burns. They were New Orleans transplants in Kansas City, wonderful cooks, and fantastic human beings. They were partners in business and in life. Kevin did most of the cooking. Gloria was the heart and soul of the restaurant. I love Cajun cooking, particularly a good gumbo. And to make it right, the roux has to be perfect. Now, if you're not familiar with gumbo, roux is this magical paste that's made by frying flour in butter. I know, right? It's difficult to do right because if flour sticks, it burns and becomes bitter. But when it's stirred and nurtured, it slowly turns from white to golden tan to a deep brown and releases this nutty, complex flavor. Oh, did Kevin and Gloria do it right? I love the food at LaCroix's, but not as much as I loved them. They only had one flaw. They were Oakland Raiders fans. Still, we became friends despite this nearly unforgivable sin in Kansas City Chiefs country. When the Raiders would come to town, I would give Kevin and Gloria my seats to the game. They didn't have a lot of time away from the restaurant. Tickets were expensive. So I knew how much it meant to them the first time I saw Gloria's eyes light up when I presented them with this gift. See, as someone else who was a transplant in Kansas City, someone struggling to make friends and find my connections, the tickets were my way of thanking them for making me feel welcome. In 2006, they decided to close the restaurant. On their final night open, they invited special guests for a traditional feast: crawfish, corn, turkey necks, gumbo, and beer on a Midwestern spring night. It was a glorious evening, a New Orleans funeral, the party for the death of a restaurant. May its memory shine on. At the end of the evening, I was feeling lost. I was wandering aimlessly. It was hard to see them go. I was losing my friends, these connections that I had made. And Gloria gently pulled me aside, handed me a small folded cloth, about 8 or 10 inches square, maybe a half of an inch thick. As I unfolded it, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was one of her cooking aprons, embroidered with the logo, LaCroix's Creole Bistro. I was overcome with this amazing emotion. I started crying. This was not a uniform. This was a symbol of family. With this gentle reminder, she was telling me I belonged and was part of her family. As I stood there crying, Gloria looked back at me, gently smiled, the corners of her mouth coming up, filling her cheeks. It became bright and round as her eyes shone through her brown skin. This simple gesture, she told me I belonged and was part of her family. Gloria taught me unconditional love. I still have that apron, and I cherish it. For years, I refused to wear it because I always wanted it to be pristine, like it was a trophy. And then one day I realized that's not what she would have wanted. She would have wanted it to be used in a new kitchen for new family cooking. I wear that apron every year as I cook Thanksgiving dinner. And I swear, my turkey and stuffing taste better because of the love that's infused in that apron. You may think that's crazy. That's what I believe. I have today to forgive my past because I can't change it. I can't change that I was born to 2 parents who grew up during the Depression. And I can't change that they indoctrinated me with stories of how life is difficult, there's never enough money to go around, and well, if you're married with kids, life just sucks. My mother used to tell me as a child, "You're just an accident." In introducing me to others, she would say, "Oh, he's my little accident," and give a tittering laugh. An accident. That means I wasn't wanted. That means I shouldn't be here. That means I don't even belong in my own family. Holy shit, that's a mind blower for a kid. Before she passed in 1996, we had a conversation about that word. In a rare moment of contriteness, she offered an apology. That's just the word we used back then, was all she could come up with. I stood there feeling a strange combination of empathy and resentment. This was not enough of an apology. I wanted her to say, "I'm sorry, Danny," and take responsibility for the words that she had used that hurt me. But she wasn't capable of this, and I knew it. She had grown up living a hard life, She learned that being cold and removed and putting up walls was her way to protect herself from being hurt and disappointed in life. I stood there feeling a strange sadness for us both. I thought I would discover where I belonged by working for family-owned companies. Because the greatest thing about working for a family-owned company, they treat their employees like family. So for the last 15 years of my previous career, I worked for companies owned by families. And I had the wrong last name at every one of them. I quickly learned no matter what I brought to the table as new ideas or what I contributed, because our surnames were not shared, I didn't belong having any contribution to the company, and I certainly did not belong in the family. The last company also happened to be a woman-owned business. The owner, Karen, names have been changed to protect the semi-innocent, was powerful and opinionated. She was a president and she was a mother. She had a mother's ability to cut an employee down like a child. Because in my experience, the worst thing about working for a family-owned company, they sometimes treat their employees just like family. You're just a salesman, was her dismissal that cut me the deepest. A man who sells? That's it. Nothing more. The day she said that to me in a meeting was the day I knew I was wasting my life for people who did not appreciate the all of me. That was the day I said, I have today, and this stops now. I began crafting my exit strategy and left shortly thereafter on my grand reinvention. By dismissing me, Karen taught me to stand up for myself. She taught me to find the courage to pursue my dreams. If not for the heat of that moment, I would not be standing here today. In 2014, fresh off the heels of my first marriage ending in divorce, I was merely marking time, incredibly frustrating and unfulfilling time. I had discovered that life was just as my parents had described it, a miserable struggle. But there was a voice, a little voice in my head that whispered, it can be different. I didn't know if I could trust it, and I could barely hear it. I kind of thought, what do I have to lose? Sharon Edwards, a hypnotherapist in Kansas City, helped me to hear that voice more clearly, bring it forward, and also find my courage to follow it. Shortly after that healing, I began a new relationship. I had known Sarah Richardson since 2010. It took me 4 years to be ready for her presence in my life. I saw her as out of my league, an executive at a Fortune 200 company, someone who loved life and lived it fully, and where I saw myself as unworthy, just a salesman. This magnificent woman that I placed on a pedestal saw me as an equal. An equal! During my reinvention, Sarah supported me through that journey. That first year was hard. So much of who I thought I was supposed to be and who I was being didn't match. Through it all, Sarah saw the complexity of the perfect Rue as I was unpacking 47 years of knowing who I was, or thinking I knew who I was. I was seeing the bland white flower of my life. As Sarah saw the Rue. The funny thing about that statement is that since we've met, I've been the primary cook in the family. And that was a hard story to overcome in those early years. There was a voice in my head that called me Mr. Mom on the kindest of my worst days. It sneered at me and said much darker things on the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad days. And through it all, I continued forward. The Rue was coming together. So much of who I thought I was supposed to be, what society told me I should be because I'm a man, wasn't matching. I wasn't bringing home the bacon, but I could fry it up in a pan. My vision of myself as a future entrepreneur contrasted drastically with my then reality as a house husband. Through it all, Sarah saw the finished product. And then one day it all clicked. That was the day I started my business, my own family-owned company, the one where I did have the right last name. The Rue of my life was finally ready. Since that day, I've been particularly fortunate to be surrounded by other strong and powerful women. Business connections and teachers, Pat, Lisa, Brooke, Netta, all saw something deeper in me that I had not fully connected to in those moments. By nurturing, by stirring me, they pulled me forward, pulled out complexities in myself that I didn't even know existed. They showed me I belonged. And through it all, I've come to realize that I always belonged exactly where I was at any point in time. I may not have wanted to be in those difficult places where I was told that and believed that I was less than, but the heat of those difficult times transformed me from bland to complex. Sometimes we need to find out where something doesn't belong to discover where it does. Good cooking requires time, and it requires experimentation. Sometimes we discover that our favorite ingredient, or maybe even a basic ingredient, just doesn't belong in every recipe. Pour flour directly into soup? Don't do it. Fry that flour, nurture it, draw out its complexity. Now you have the foundation for an even greater creation. So when we discover where it doesn't belong, we know exactly where it does. I have today as the foundation for my future. I hope to discover today one more place that I don't belong, because that will absolutely confirm for me another place where I can use my unique flavor and power. I'm too bold for some. For others, I'm just right. Sarah helped me to see that. Because for every bland can of corporate soup that tells me I don't belong, there is a connoisseur searching for the perfect roux, which is what I am today. No longer an accident, now a necessary ingredient. I belong.